As you can see, Brandon is there standing by, ready to go. I've just realized the lighting situation where I am seems a bit odd. That's because there's a big bay window in front of me and the sun was coming right in. So it was very weird. Brandon's laughing at me. So the room looks a little stranger than it does on the rest of the webinars, but that's because this is our first evening webinar, which has me quite excited. And I'm also quite excited because I'm nerdy like that. I'm also quite excited for Brandon's session and a couple of the things he's going to try and do and the functionality he's going to try and use. So for those of you who've been on some of our other webinars, this one's going to be different. And we're hoping it works well. A bit of that is down to you guys and how interactive you want to get. So stick with us and get involved. We think this could work really well. There's a functionality in here that I am about to turn on that will let you guys raise your hand to speak. So you'll get an option there along the chat window where you can ask to speak. You'll see it at the top of the chat window. So there are a couple of times during Brandon's presentation where he's built in an opportunity to bring someone on, to bring one of you guys on. You'll get to turn on your mic. You can turn on your camera if you like. And you'll get to talk, you'll get to partake in this, you'll get to guide what Brandon deals with and stuff like that. So we're going to try that. It may go horribly wrong, but we're going to try it anyway. So we're quite excited by that. So don't ask to speak until we hit those points. And then when we do ask that you put your hand up as such, we'll fly through and we'll pick someone, and you'll become a presenter temporarily. And we'll see how all that works and see can we get you talking. You don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want to. You will just need at least a mic working. So just keep that in mind. It might be a bit clunky the first time we do it, but we're going to try and do it because we think it's worth it for the way Brandon has built this and the effort he's put in. So rather than assume you've all been here before, I'll tell you a couple of quick things. Elaine is asking, will this one be recorded? Yes, you can take it that all of these are recorded. We are recording all of them. So yes, there will be a recording available in this one, as well as all the others. The chat window is on the right-hand side. There's a red tab. You can use that to minimize the chat window if you find it distracting. We did a panel webinar yesterday that was extremely good. And one of the reasons it was extremely good was all the chat and all the activity that was happening in the chat window. So it's up to you. If you do minimize it, keep in mind that's where the request to speak button is. That's also where offers and things that Brandon will have us put live during his session will appear. So if we're talking about raise your hand to speak, if we're saying, look, there's an offer there now, if you want to have a look, all that will live in that chat window. So if you do close it, remember to go over there to get those, but it's completely up to you. Close it if you want, there's no problem. I should say thank you to Actavo as usual. Paul Griffin and the guys in Actavo who are on board and helping us put these webinars together and get them out in front of people. I have to say the whole series so far, I think this is our 8th one. It's gone really well. It continues to go really well. The feedback is good. So we're really happy with how it's going. And so are the guys in Actavo. They were happy to support it. It's great to have these opportunities. We're not the only ones doing webinars. There's crowd safety training. Andy Hollinson and his gang are doing some great webinars. Professor Chris Kemp is doing some really good stuff with Pete Dalton and that as well. There's a lot of good stuff out there. So make sure you're trying to capitalize on that. We'll all be back full whack at work sooner rather than later, and we all won't have the amount of time to put into these things. So I think take advantage while they're there. There will be recording, and yes, there will be certificates of attendance. I've just seen that question come in as well. So you can take it for all these webinars. There'll be a recording, and certs of attendance will come out, usually within a day or two. It just depends on our workload and how quickly we get to process them. But they're usually within a day or two. I've spotted a couple of our clients are in the room. Des, Alicia, I might check in with you over the weekend to see how this week went. Thanks for joining us. I think we're going to get going. Like I said, please get involved when Brandon does offer to bring someone on. Put your hand up. There's no problem if no one does. We'll move on. Brandon's prepared for that. But a session like this will work a lot better if you guys are interactive and if someone wants to come on, ask the question, or indeed answer the question that Brandon is putting to you. So I think that's pretty much all I need to say. Hopefully this goes well. It'll go well anyway. I've seen the content. It's really good. And hopefully that interactive element goes well. So, Brandon, if you're ready to pop your slides on, I might get out of your way. I'll be here listening, and I'll pop back in when you need me and when you want me. All right? Thanks, man.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Mark, for the great introduction. And hello, good evening to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Wow, I'm really excited. This is my first session webinar, and yeah, the past time for all of us have been a great opportunity to check in with all kinds of webinars, just like Mark said. And I'm also a big fan of it because this is a great tool to be able to share all kinds of content with each other. Yeah, so let's get going. My name is Brandon, and I like to call myself an event professional from the Netherlands. Today's session, I'll be focusing on about to be and already freelance event professionals. The reason for doing that is because I'm really passionate about freelancing myself. Yeah, and this way we'll be able to inspire each other, share ideas, and hopefully be able to connect. And who knows where that leads to. So just a couple of things. Just get going a bit with the next slide. To tell you about what you can expect from this webinar, we have some great sessions about some topics, some polls I would like to discuss with you guys to get a feel of what you think of. We're doing some live sessions. That's where I'm about to be next in. I've divided, just get a bit comfortable with the mouse here to go to the next slide. I've divided this whole session in a few topics. So the first one I'd like to go about is, where do you start actually when you want to go freelancing? It's often that start. How do you get there? What do you need? How do you keep growing? And eventually like to talk about a few memorable things in my past freelance experiences. So yeah, we're having some polls, like I said. We're getting some questions and answers. And this one, invite a guest speaker. This is where I'm excited about. After each session topic, I would like to invite one of you guys to join the session. And once you're in the session, I will ask you 2 questions. And we'll go deeper into that just to get a feel of what other people think and might say about it. So that leads me to, where do you actually start? It's easy to say to the beginning. It's pretty much of a deal when you start about freelancing. I mean, it's your company, freelancer, sole contractor, self-employment. It's about you and your company. So it's quite a lot you take on your shoulders there, and it's good to be prepared. So actually, to get a quite feel, Mark, are you able to put the first poll up so we can get a feel of what experience we do have in the room?
Yeah, that poll's just gone live there now, so people should be able to see that and pick an answer for you.
Oh, all right. Yeah, so this poll is about, are you an experienced freelancer already, or are you new to freelancing? Are you thinking about freelancing? That's the way to find out where we are, and I'm looking forward to the results after that. I guess, Mark, you'll share the results once they come in. So figure out what you want. That's really the basic start for me. It is a passion. It's something you really have to be desired to, because once you're a freelancer, it's mostly about getting lots and lots of hours in it. So you definitely have to get a feel from yourself what gets you excited. So it's really important to find out what do you want. The events industry is very, very large. You've lots of roles, whether you want to be in production or you want to be at the front of starting events in more of the planning side, whether you want to be on the safety side, or whether you want to work with artists, so you're more at the advancing, or maybe managing some artists. There's loads and loads of stuff out there. So it's pretty good to get an idea of what way you want to be heading towards to, and get a feel for it by talking to some people and all, to see whether self-employment is something for you as well, because it's quite a lifestyle you take on yourself, to be self-employed, to be freelancing. So yeah, once you start, it's good.
Brandon, this is actually quite interesting. You're looking at exactly 50% of people are considering becoming a freelancer.
All right.
And just under about 28% are already experienced freelancers, and another 17 are new to freelancing. So you've got nearly 50 doing some level of freelancing already, and the other 50%, 48% are thinking of becoming freelancers. So that's where you're landing there.
Wow, that is interesting and amazing, guys. Good way of starting. One of the reasons I'm doing this webinar is that I'm really excited about freelancing. And actually, this is a sneak peek in what I wanted to share with you guys much later on in the presentation. But to be quite honest, one of the things that I regret when I look back at the experience I've had so far is that I didn't start sooner. So this is a great starting point that a lot of you guys out there are thinking about becoming a freelancer. I'm excited by that. So once you figure out what you have an idea of where you want to be going, start by writing it down. Writing it down helps to clear your mind and get a sort of a feel of the plan of the steps you want to take in your future career as a sole contractor. It sets up a bit of a path, and it's probably a good way to help yourself getting a picture of some finances. So make sure you know what type of income do you need, what is your situation, what are your circumstances. So there's this next topic that we're gonna head towards to is ask yourself those questions. Where am I at? What are my circumstances? Why do I want this? Am I in the right circumstances? Because like all of you can imagine, the events industry is a industry, fast-pacing, lots and lots of hours need to come in the industry, to long working days. So if you have a family situation, it's good to consider whether the freelancing is part of you. Also, the risk you take as being a freelancer gets you to a point that you have to have enough income each month again. So it's something to think about, whether you're prepared to go on a journey like this. So it's really good to question that. And it's perfectly natural. Once you come at the point where you think, I've read into how taxes work, I've talked or spoken to an accountant, I've spoken with some people who are already freelancing, and I think I'm ready for it. Probably just before the point you get to there, really wondering, oh, what am I doing now? Maybe get second thoughts or anything. It's natural. It's quite big, large responsibility for yourself that you take on yourself. So it can be quite scary, that first move, whether you want to do it. But I can really say to you, it's really, really exciting to get started. So I'd like to share a bit of my story, how I started. My first encounter with the live events industry was with a company here based in Holland that was actually a full service entertainment company, AT Productions. And that's where I really started to see what the live events industry is about. I got the chance to start my first company with a couple of friends, because due to the things we were doing, we got asked to do some promotion for some artists. So we went on a tour with a famous Dutch artist, and after his shows, we promoted some flyers for the next shows. And I always called up some friends, and that's actually how I got into doing some more stuff. And after that, actually, my first company didn't work out that well. The friends I started it with, we all started to go in a different direction. And from that point on, I decided to go further by myself. And actually, that's a point where I started to do a different job. so that was something else. But when doing that different job, I realized that it wasn't what I really wanted. It wasn't what I desired. So that actually got me thinking, and I started to call some friends that I knew back from AT production from my time during my internship there. And that was like 3 years later. And I asked them, hey guys, do you have an opportunity still for me to join you? Because I was really had that desire to go back in the events industry. And yeah, that was the spot. They had a spot for me as an artist booker. So I started doing freelance artist bookings, working for commission, which was a great way to start. And at the same time, my mom works at the legislation office here in The Hague. So there are some event organizers that she knew. And one of them was able to have a sit down with me. And I asked if I could join them and work for them. And that's actually my first start of how I could freelance in that world. And that's where I started envisioning. That's where I ran through all my thoughts is, what do I want? What is my desire? My desire was really getting onto that path of arranging all these kind of things and make sure it happens. So once somebody has an idea and you're working with that idea and you want to make it happen, make it real. So that's where I figured I wanted to go on a path for becoming an event producer. And that's the path I still follow today. And I think it's good once you start that you think of a goal you want to reach. And in my way, I started making goals each year. So I didn't make a business plan or some extensive other planning in like, say, work out a strategy for the coming 5 years. I just figured I take it step by step. So my first year, my goal was, okay, I want to do as many event jobs as I can and have 3 full-time clients in the first coming year. So that's where I actually started to work towards to. Which gets me to the next point of how I would like to invite one of you guys now to come in the show. And I really wonder, how did you figure out what you want? And what is it in the beginning that you were hesitant of? So if we have somebody, Mark is probably figuring out if somebody is a volunteer for this.
Yeah, we've got a few people volunteering in there. I'm just going to let more jump in there if they want. It's there's a really fascinating chat going on, Brandon.
All right.
And one of the guys has made a good point that when we come out the far side of this COVID-19 situation,
yeah,
he thinks that freelancers could be in a much stronger position even than they were before, in that companies who maybe had to downsize and had to let people go may very quickly need people to help them run their events, and they could be looking to freelancers more so than they even used to, you know.
That's a great, definitely a great way of seeing it. I think that happened in Holland. If I speak for the Netherlands, a couple of years ago, we had the construction world that was downsizing, and many people turned freelancer. There's a bit of a risk there, because I do feel once you become a freelancer, you really have to want it. And from that point on, I do think we have a strong position, because many companies will be hesitant after this COVID-19 period to take on long-term contracts. So in this case, that would be definitely a great solution.
No, I think you could be right. And if I'm correct, and if technology has worked, Andy, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just got punted off, and I appear to come back on with a picture of myself, which is quite frightening. But
well, we can't see you, so don't worry. We can hear you.
Lucky for you, then.
Am I right in saying that it was you that actually made that point in the chat about the value of freelancers post COVID-19? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Brandon, now that this has worked, I'm going to get out of the chat and you can go through. Andy, don't be aggrieved when this section is finished. We'll be kicking you out as a presenter.
That's
and I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know, do you land back in the room, or will you need to click to log back in? You might let me know in the chat when you work your way back in.
No problem at all.
We've not done this before, but we will get rid of you as a presenter, and you might let me know where you land after that.
Grand.
And thank you for being willing to jump on.
It's all right. I don't know whether there's a question that I've just missed in the last 30 seconds when I was out of the chat, or whether
he
I'm waiting for one now.
Brandon hasn't asked the question yet, so he can go through you. He can go through it with you now.
No problem.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All right. Yes, I'm great. Thanks. Hey, thank you for coming on. It's really great. Appreciate it. Hey, are you a freelancer yourself already, or?
Yeah, I started freelancing in February last year, so had a fantastic first 10 months, and then the rug got pulled out from underneath us slightly. But the first year was great. Really enjoyed it.
I'm sorry for that to hear. But at the beginning, when you started 10 months ago, how did you figure out what you want? What was your first starting point?
I'd been in the events industry in various ways for probably 15 years. Degree in event management, and then worked in sports sponsorship. And then was working for a company in the UK, the Great Run Company, for 10 years, organising road races, mass participation stuff around the country. Left there and went across to work as head of sport at the European Championships that was on in Glasgow in 2018. I always knew that was only ever going to be a fixed term contract, and I think that really opened my eyes to working with a lot of people from around the world who travelled and worked on lots of different events. And I think coming out the back of that, I've got a young family. I'd spent the best part of 5 years commuting to Glasgow from Edinburgh most days. And it was a combination of wanting to get a better work-life balance, and also wanting to have the ability to go and speak to people who own or who work on events that interested me. Obviously, there was a financial element. I sat down and worked out how much I needed to make every month to pay the mortgage and everything else. And yeah, I think, say, having had 15 years of work in the industry across the UK, I was pretty confident that I knew enough people and I had a good enough track record to be able to fill a year. And I was fortunate, no bones about it. In the first few weeks, I landed 2 really nice long-term contracts that meant I was working Monday to Friday and not having to go chasing event work at weekends, which was great from a family perspective. But yeah, where I wanted to, if there was events or races or stuff like that I wanted to get involved in, I could go and crew. And I think I back myself, having worked in operational roles, worked in strategic roles, that I could wear a number of hats, which I think is really important when you're freelancing. If you pigeonhole yourself too much, then you're really working in a fairly small field. If you can have as many strings to your bow as possible, that's definitely a bonus.
Of course. Great. That's a great way to start. And then at that point, I mean, I can hear you say you're pretty confident because you've already had some contacts and you've had the experience. So that sounds solid. So was there a thing that you were afraid of where you started, or were you a bit hesitant in?
Financially, obviously that was a big concern. Was, am I going to make enough money every month to be where we need to be? As I say, I was fortunate in that the work came in fairly quickly. I think the other thing that I'd say to anyone that's worked in the industry and is thinking of being freelance is you maybe don't know what you know until you're out there speaking to people who you don't usually work with. I think very quickly I became a lot more confident in how, without sounding big-headed, how good I am at doing what I do, and I think you sometimes lose that if you're always working with the same people and delivering the same events. And yeah, I was fortunate to work overseas in the Middle East for the last 3 months of the year, and again bringing experiences that I've had here to a market that's maybe 5-10 years younger than it is in the UK. You really quickly realize that actually, yeah, I do know what I'm doing. I'm not just winging this.
Wow, that's great. Thanks, Andy, for sharing us.
No problem.
All right. Cheers. All the best.
You.
All right. That was just a great example of this session, and that it actually works. It's great hearing what Andy says, and it's definitely, once you're further in the process, the ones that 50% that's thinking of becoming a freelancer, is so recognizable that, yeah, you figure out, you the point just before you start, you'll get all these thoughts like, am I gonna make enough money? But on the other hand, that freedom, that feeling that often you'll hear people saying, like, you're free to do what you want, and each time is a new opportunity to excel in what you're doing. And that's what I feel like in working for companies, that's limiting you sometimes, not all companies, but sometimes it is. And that's a part I like from freelancing. All right, so just move on to the next slide over here. That's really from this part of the session, like, really figure out what you want, write it down, or think of some path, or even go to your calendar, put some goals in you want to get towards to, and then just start going. That's really, one of my friends said, I remember a year or 4 years ago, I was struggling, I was doing all kinds of things, thinking, oh, how do I proceed and move forward? And then he just said, like, you just got to do it and then work from there. Because sometimes you want to make everything perfect and then start, but that start is not always that way. So it's just good to just start and build on from there. All right, I just want to give some room for some questions. I can imagine after this first part, there might be some questions. Maybe we can do 1 or 2 questions from the chat, Mark, if there are any, and otherwise we'll just move on.
Oh God, the room here is getting darker and darker. I do apologize. That looks really freaky. I may turn the light on and see how that looks. There's some good chat going back. I think people really appreciated Andy's input and hearing from someone about how they started out. There's a lot of the chat is kind of about, it's about that fear that you're talking about.
Yep.
A couple of people have mentioned that their fear is that post-COVID-19, like, they're thinking, am I good enough to compete for the work that does appear against all these other people that are in a similar situation?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, look, it can be difficult for all of us. Sometimes none of us know our own worth or how good we are.
Yep.
But I think if we're being really objective and honest with ourselves, I think we can figure out whether we're good at what we do and whether we're good enough at what we do. Andy's advice was really solid, where he says, as a freelancer, if you can wear a few hats, if you can do a few different things, that makes you a really strong candidate for stuff. And I fully agree with that. And what I would say is, if you're starting out or taking that leap, as you said, Brandon, write it down. I'm a big fan of writing stuff down. Write down the main roles you know, and I mean you're good at.
Yeah.
So jobs you've done before, roles that you've definitely filled before, and even as a freelancer, if you can start with those roles and then start to explore roles around you, other functions, that's a good way to go. There have to be roles you know you're good at, you have experience in, and start there and then branch out. You'll find areas of the industry that you're keen to go into. I mean, Brandon, I'm sure when you started freelancing, you had certain roles you were used to doing, certain work you had done.
Oh, for sure.
But maybe you were keen to look at others and learn about others, and that can be the challenging bit, to get the opportunity to find the new stuff you want to do.
Yep, definitely. All right, sounds good. Yeah, well, that's a good bridge to start to that next part of how do we get there. Well, first of all, if you decide to go freelancing, you have to make it official, right? So starting point from how it works in the Netherlands, I guess it works different in the UK. I guess it works different in Ireland. Anywhere around the world, maybe Australia, they all have their rules of becoming self-employed. But here in Holland, there's the Chamber of Commerce. That's where you register. And once you register, you get a tax number. So these are these administrative parts of being self-employed. And actually, they have these few questions of that's where it's helpful to write a few things down, because they don't ask you for a business plan, but I think it's solid to just give some of direction where you want to go to. And I think the tax office is interested in what you think you'll be earning the next year, because it's important to set it off against somebody who's just doing a job on the side and just making some extra money, towards somebody that is really an entrepreneur and getting his self-employment of his company, which in that case often gives you some tax reliefs, and some other advantages and benefits of working self-employed. And that's shortly about what does make you self-employed. It's working at your own expense and risk. It's really important. That's one of the criteria where the tax office will take a look at. And what we see is that it's really popular. The number of freelancers is keeping to grow, and especially maybe in the COVID-19 situation. Yeah, it's hard to look ahead of what it will look like after this. But once again, also from the talk with Andy, I think we're on the right track, that it also offers a lot of opportunity, because people will look for, once we get started and going again, people will start looking for event professionals to do the work. And it's easier to have someone coming in for a certain amount of time, a project, and you can get a feel of that someone, what these skills are, skill sets. Then it's really good to get started from there. Some criteria for being self-employed: it's really about having a product or offer a service, and perform the work on a regular basis. So it's not to compare with a hobby or something you're really passionate about, like to do. It's often in the events industry, it's so great. You get to see really great places, productions, or really special occasions, and many people who like to have a part of that. But it's really have to be your sole focus of your business, and get your clients around that, and really be independent in this part. So yeah, what options do you have? I mean, there's loads of ways you can freelance, especially for the ones that are thinking about becoming a freelancer. Maybe that first step of becoming a full-time freelancer can be a bit quite a step. So you could also ease into it and just start part-time. Any situation came from working for a former boss and really had a chance to explore the event industry in that way, which can be a good way for yourself as well, to start at a company and are a bit sure of your income that's coming your way. And then on the side, you can take jobs and really get to know people and get a feel for yourself what role you would like to take within the events industry. So that hats, you can try them on and see if you want to keep them, or if you want to try another hat. Another thing we have to be mindful of is, it is in the name. It's when you start as a freelancer, you have to have your company name, which is also your way of presenting yourself. So it's good to get a name for yourself that resonates with, I think, who you are or what you're doing in the industry. I have to be honest, my first name was Events by Bran, because I wanted to keep it personal. So I got a part of my name in it. But on the other hand, it sounded more as a guy who's organizing some events. And that wasn't really the direction I wanted to go towards to. And especially in the first 3 years, I was exploring roles from site crew to stage builder, for decoration crew, artist handling. I was trying on all those hats, and I was really supporting the producers or technical production companies or stage build companies. So really it was more support. So that's why I got to the name of Bran Event Support. Really get down to that event support, because that's the side I'm on at this point, and who knows in the future that will change a bit. So Mark, can we start a poll of the people who are freelancing already? I'm happy to find out if you're happy with your name and if it resonates and resembles what you do in the name. So maybe we can get a get a look at that, and we'll hear the results somewhere.
Yeah, I've just put that one live there now. So we should get a few answers. You know what? I'm in two minds about the name thing. Anyone who knows me personally, my background is marketing, and I'm big into marketing and stuff. And I would spend time agonizing over business names and product names and stuff like that. I kind of enjoy the process of coming up with it. And at the same time, as I've gotten older and more experienced in business, I always say to people, I often, advise or work with some entrepreneurs or fledgling entrepreneurs, and they can be really agonizing over a name. And I've reached a point where I have to say to them, look, don't spend too much time stressing over it, simply because, like, think of your favorite band, think of some brands that are out there. Like, we say the word, but we're not thinking of what it means. It means that band, or it means that brand, or that product. We don't actually interrogate the word subconsciously. Like, if you think of Red Hot Chili Peppers as a band name, like, it's nonsense. Like, who came up with that? That wasn't inspired, but we say it happily because it represents a band we like. So I would agree with you. Personally, I'm big on the names and the brands, but then from a business perspective, you don't want to stress about it too much. But I like the way you changed. I like the way you went from, to me, like Events by Bran or something like that. It kind of sounds like a wedding planner.
Yep. Yeah.
It's that kind of vibe. Whereas you ended up changing and getting the word support in there, which really describes what you do. So if I see the name of your business, I probably go, well, his name is probably Bran or Brandon, and he's offering event support. Now, I wonder what type of support. I wonder, does he specialize, or can he do a lot of things? So it already has me thinking the wheels are turning.
Yeah.
So just the poll, about 2/3, 65% say that they're happy with the business name and it reflects what they do. And about a third, then 35% are saying no. Now, I'm assuming the people that answered this, like you said, are people who do have their own businesses. So it would seem that maybe a third of people have a name they're using, but they're not fully convinced it's maybe the right one, or maybe they're considering tweaking it like you did.
Great. Good to know. All right, off to the next part. So from here, it's often you've now set your name, you've registered your company, it's that next step. So what do you do? First of all, it's quite challenging from this point to get to know people, unless, of course, you come from the industry already and you know a few people in there. Although there might be an additional challenge in that, because you've worked for a company now and your boss employed you before, and now you're maybe about to use some of the context you've learned working for them to use for your own business. So do be mindful about that part once you get freelancing, because the events industry, we all know, is a small world. And it's great because I got the opportunity to learn some of the events world here in Holland, but also outside of Holland in other countries. And it's always the same thing. And even better said, sometimes even people who are in the sort of inner circle here in Holland are the same part, whether that's in Australia, the UK, or Ireland. It's definitely a large industry, but also at the same time a small world. So about that part of getting clients, what I did when I started was really get out there, because my goal was to have 3 or more clients the first year. And I had 2 good ones at that first start, but I really wanted to get going and work as a sole contractor, so get more opportunity to look what's out there. And I really put myself out there by emailing or getting people on LinkedIn, or when I was at the job, asking other people if they might knew opportunities. I found that really helpful for myself. Once you're working in the field, you're able, during the job, working with somebody often you don't know before, definitely if you're doing several jobs and working with several clients, and each time that new individual is a new opportunity to get to another client. One of the important parts on that side is I took on any role in the beginning. Even when I just started out freelancing, I have to be honest, my freelance work in the events industry wasn't that much at the start. So I actually worked at a restaurant. I worked as a designated driver, and I did some other side jobs just to cover, like building a beach club. We each have in each year, we at the start of a season, we have some beach clubs here, and I could do some work there, which is not technically working for the events industry, but got me some experience in how to get clients, how to provide work for yourself so that you have that enough income and really grow from there. So yeah, one of my advices would be in that, buy a basic set of tools, because that part for me is also about getting new clients and be able to work in different roles. Like, for example, if you're just going for stage building, you do need that hammer. And if you go for decorations, you do need that saw. Or so once you start going, start at the basics and expand your tools. Mark, I'm already interested in the next poll. That was actually for the previous slide, I noticed, but I wonder how everybody's in there. Would you take on any role just at the start, or would you just specifically focus on that specific role that you would take as a freelancer that you want to become in the events industry? There's more strategies towards that, but I wonder how you guys would think of that.
Yeah, I've just popped that poll live there now. Andy has just come back in the chat to say your suggestion that people take on any role at the start is quite a good one. And again, if you were in a situation similar to Andy's, where you've been in the industry, you've built up some contacts, you can be quite lucky in that you might find some really good meaty roles. Maybe if you're a bit younger and you're trying to go freelance, to take any role. Now that's quite broad. I mean, you don't want to be used and abused, and you don't want to do maybe the same thing at 5 events in a row. You might want to move around. And there's a few people in the chat asking about how you don't want to get pigeonholed. How do you move if you've always done? Someone said, like, if they've always done security jobs, transport management jobs, how do they then move into production? And my advice on that, it's going to sound really glib, but my advice on that, it's really about networking and getting out there and talking to people when you're on events and asking, could you shadow someone, or asking, could they do with a hand on the next event on their team? I have multiple people that I know in the industry who never even studied events and wanted to get into them, got that approach going, volunteered in the space of one summer season, went from volunteering in various roles to being paid for some great assistant roles. And by the end of that season, they were filling paid roles themselves. And it comes down to this: they were good.
Yeah.
So if you're good and you think you're good and you're willing to learn and you're willing to muck in, put your name out there, stick your head up, talk to people, come on things like this. I've seen people already connect in the chat. And I think they might help each other out, which is really good. But LinkedIn, other places like that, get on Twitter. I say this on everything. You don't have to love social media. You don't have to be brilliant at it. But if that's where conversations are happening, you should consider jumping on there. Twitter and LinkedIn have some great event professionals and communities and people willing to help, So yeah, you're looking at about 56% saying in the beginning they'd take on any role, but they do keep focused on their goal. And about 20% then saying they'd be selective about what work they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's fair enough. And there's different approaches. I think personally, depending on where you're at in your career, will probably help answer that question for you. If you're like Andy and you've done 15 years in the agency side or the organizer side, you will have contacts. Whereas if you're younger and you're fresher into it, maybe it's a harder slog and you'll be taking more broader roles at the start,
Yep. Great. All right. There's some good answers in there. Yeah, so getting back to that tools, of course, buy PC or Mac. I know there's a lot of discussion and debate in the industry whether you should buy a PC or a Mac. I bought a PC myself. Not that I'm not a fan of a Mac, but I feel with the setup I'm using and the years I've been working with a PC already, it really fits perfectly for me. And I also had in mind what I wanted to do with it in the future, what programs and software I do want to use. And so that's really some good things to first talk about, because it's also important that you keep investing in yourself and your company to get better at what you're doing. Of course, at the end, to keep your profits low, so you invest in financial times. One way of investing in yourself is really, from my point of view, is get certification. I think it's one of the best investments you can do as a sole contractor, because it doesn't only allow yourself to learn something, but it's also giving you the opportunity to do other types of jobs or take more responsibility during a job. You are able to take on roles and really grow in them and expand that with your extended knowledge that you got from a course, or whether you want to drive a forklift truck. There's so many. Definitely, if you want to be in the site production, it's good to have that forklift license, to have that telehandler license, to there's so many things that you can have a license for. Construction white card for that's something that's there in Australia. You have some similar ones in other countries, with this you're definitely more interesting for clients because you have the right certification, so you have some knowledge of using it. I mean, you do get the experience by using it over time. But it's a start, and definitely for insurance, because then again, once you're a sole contractor, it's about being independent and risk. So in these terms, that's covered this way as well. And that's one of the things that I did as well, is starting with lots of courses in the beginning. So the forklift license, being able to drive a telehandler, and expand to crouch management course, which I then ended up towards a master's program, enrolled in that. So that's really, really good to expand on. And then we're coming to the part that I would like to invite someone from the audience again and get these two questions. What makes you self-employed, and how did you get where you are? If there's someone up for liking to share that with us at this point. Let's see if Mark can bring someone in.
Yeah, we'll see if anyone jumps in on that one. I have to say again, there's some good advice in the comments there. There's people sharing their experiences. That's and Matt Dinnery, who's a good guy, knows what he's talking about, is suggesting that when you're working on an event, listen to the radio.
Yeah.
Listen for when managers or department heads or whoever are looking for someone to help them to do something. There was a similar suggestion in there from Ken, who says that if you're part of a crew and you finish whatever you've been asked to do, don't just wait until you're assigned something again.
Yep.
That you can always go and you can ask. You can always go and you can ask to be. You can ask to be tasked with something else. You can ask, do you have anything else you need me to do? Being very honest. This is maybe too honest, but as someone who hires freelancers and works with people who don't work for me full time, there's an awful lot of people who want to work in events. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who work for free. A lot of people who might get taken advantage of for working for free and everything. We're not short of people who want to work and do the job and think they work in events. But what we can be short of, and what we are all looking to find, are really good proactive freelancers. And there's a difference. There's lots of freelancers, but good ones, proactive ones that slot in well with your team. These are all the things when we're hiring freelancers we have to consider. You could be And I've had this discussion with some people in the industry, like, you could be really good, but maybe I don't think you'll fit in with our team.
Yeah.
I know really good freelancers who work on corporate events, and a lot of what we do isn't very corporate. Our own office isn't very corporate. How we approach our events, how we run them sometimes, how we act on them, how we engage with each other, it's not like corporate events. So I know some really good people in the industry, but probably they wouldn't fit in well with my team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And sometimes it's just horses for courses. Everyone's being really shy on this one, Brandon.
Right.
No one wants to jump in on this one.
Then we're just getting on to the next one.
Yeah, cool.
So this is really the key points from this session is indeed just be open to learn, be eager, and really reach out to those people that you meet alongside the jobs. So we come down, we discussed a few questions. Let's skip that part a bit and move on to this next session. As all the discussions in the chat seem to be going on really well. We'll have another Q&A after this one. So yeah, what do you need? Depends on really what you're aiming for. There could be tons of things that once you've had that in the beginning, that you have your mind set on a certain goal or a path that you want to work towards to. Mine is really becoming a technical producer. So my path at the beginning was working all those different hats, those different jobs of doing construction work, site crew work, forklift driving, being Sparky type of jobs, doing artist handling, doing some jobs as stagehand. All these different roles allow me to, first of all, get some experience and a broad experience, because I feel the technical producer of an event is really responsible for the whole part, of course divided down in several teams and other responsibilities. But in this sense, I feel this broad experience can help me become a better technical producer eventually, due to the fact that you have that field experience in several ways. Once you come across a problem, even when it is at a stage, positioning a stage somewhere and the ground's not level and there's not enough equipment, but can we fix it? Because that's often the case on those projects, that there's not an awful lot of time to think of something else, that you have to be creative in that point. And that experience of being a stage builder then yourself for about 2 years now can help in those situations to move on. Which brings me to the next part. What do you need in all circumstances, whether you want to be on the preparation side of events or the production side of events? So you want to be more on the event manager side. Of course, when you're on the event manager side, you don't always need the steel caps as much as the guys working in the field constantly. But also, once the production is going on, you all will be in the field, and there will be a time of getting on the event side where it's mandatory to wear steel caps. It's also very good. Mindel is, I think, the shoe every event side or any kind of related to as the typical shoe to wear. We're always walking long distances, so it's really good to have good footwear and your basics PPE, all the equipment like gloves, the glasses, the helmet, the hearing protection. Just make sure that it's all in good quality. And again, depending on your aim, make sure you have that basic tools, the right equipment, like also the rain gear, all that stuff is really important once you start freelancing, because it's also, from my point of view, I invested a lot in rain gear, and that sounds maybe a bit silly to talk about that deep right now, but at the same time, if you get sick or anything, you don't work, you don't get income. So make sure you have good equipment. You'll last longer, and it's much easier to cope with those long days. The next part is just about risk assessment, health and safety. very important part. I think there's loads and loads of webinars these days that go deep into that. So that's not my aim to do right now. I would like to offer, Mark, the book by Chris Hannum from ET Press. It's definitely worth a look. It's written for the self-employed and production managers who are touring. It's about doing a risk assessment, doing some health and safety, making some plans that I don't think it's mandatory in Holland to have it, but it is really sensible to do it. I'm looking into it at the moment as well.
Yeah, cool. I've just put that offer live again. Anyone who's got the chat window, it's probably jumped up in your face. You can hit the arrow top right to get rid of it. But Chris knows his stuff. He's been around a long time, and that's a good little book. No matter what part, I'm a safety guy, so I would say this, but no matter what part of the industry you work in, health and safety, working safely, all of that is going to come into your world. It is the one piece of the jigsaw that definitely crosses all departments in some way. So if you can get some qualifications or get some learning there, it will definitely stand to you. And I think another point that people in the chat have echoed, and Brandon, you made quite strongly, is getting certification. I mean, again, when you're my side of the table hiring freelancers, if we're going on site for a festival and I can bring Brandon, and I know Brandon has a ticket for a forklift, has done lots of production work before, understands how to plug things in on a stage, that's worth a lot to me. My business partner, Martin, does that for us. He knows production. He knows what gets plugged into what. He's really strong there. I am not. So I always try to fill the areas that I'm not strong. When I find good freelancers who are good at that, we have contracts every year that are led by freelancers because they're not our main source of expertise. They're not what we largely do, but the client wants us to deliver it. They want our standards. They want us to manage it. So we bring in freelancers and they completely deliver it for us under our guidance, because we're ultimately responsible to the client.
Yeah.
But the client knows it's a freelancer who has more experience in that area than I do. I just don't have enough work for that type of event to keep her on all year.
Yeah.
So she's a freelancer. And when you find a good freelancer, I can't tell you what that means when you're the business owner or the manager. When you find a freelancer that you know you can trust, that they deliver, that they know the standards you want, like that's a yearly contract. Every time we renew the contract for a few years, that lady knows she's getting renewed as well. If she wants that gig, it's hers.
Yeah.
And that's what you want as a freelancer. If you have, Andy would agree, I'd say Brandon agree, if you have 3, 4, 5 gigs you do every year, that's peace of mind. It's something to look forward to. And then you go and you search for new opportunities as they come up. So to have that solid base is where you really want to get to. I might leave that offer there, Brandon. The next time you want me to put up a new offer, it'll replace that then. So people can have a look at that book if they want.
Good. That brings me to the next important part of safety is also insurance. There's lots of different types of insurance. Definitely liability insurance is, I would say, the first step you do once you become a freelancer. It's really important. Often when you start, at least in my position, I did not have the resources to take on all types of insurance. But nowadays I'm starting to have more and more insurances just to make sure you're covered at certain areas, whether it's like legally covered if something would happen. Let's not hope it would ever happen to you, but if something would happen to yourself, make sure you have something in place that can get you a couple of months further when you are not able to do some work yourself. Transportation, that was one big one for me, and actually the one that got me new jobs is that I really invested in a van. With all the tools, the basic equipment I was just talking about. And the funny thing is, that's why I bring it up here as such important to me, because it's been a huge game changer for myself. Is once I got the van, people started noticing. I was working at jobs, maybe even as a stage builder, and then something happened in the production. Somebody didn't have a sort of tool or anything like that, and I got it out of my van. And that happened a couple of times at different locations, different places, but then people started noticing, and that's where you can maybe stick out for yourself. So this is my way of sticking out in a way for the past years, that I got myself on the road pretty good. There can be loads of other options to do that same principle as well, but for me it was really the transportation. Good mindset, yeah, that's really what I wanted to put on in the presentation as well. The events industry requires you to work long days, long hours, and it's good to have that energy flowing. So for myself personally, I take care of myself as much as I can by taking my own food. I like to eat vegetarian or vegan. Vegan has been lately the thing I'm into, because I feel energized by it. And it's not about here telling anything about vegetarian or vegan, but it's something I'm passionate about as well. And by taking good care of yourself, you're able to withstand those long hours and often maybe sometimes stressful situations, which I mean in a good way, because it's that energy that makes the events and live industry really exciting. But that's definitely one for me that I take into account. Yeah, so in part of that also for me personally, I hope it's Friday night and you're watching this with maybe a beer or a glass of wine or anything like that. I'm just sticking with a cup of tea at this point. And for me, it was important that when I'm doing production weeks, because once you're a freelancer, you'll start noticing, maybe the freelancers in the room can acknowledge that, it's you want to take on every job, and sometimes maybe more than hours fit in a day. But then it's definitely good to have some sort of healthy or be conscious about being healthy, have the right equipment and all that. Mark, can we check real quick if somebody is able to come on still and have a chat about the right mindset and what equipment would people recommend to use?
Yeah, let's see, does anyone put their hand up? I think Friday evenings and people being shy, there's a lot of talk in the chat. I think a lot of times people are maybe more comfortable talking in there. There's some good people offering help to others and stuff, which I really like to see. There are some interesting questions coming in. I think William had a really good analogy earlier on about getting started as a freelancer. Yep. And he said to me, he says, it's been described to him as a swimming pool where you're walking around, you're nervous about jumping in, but at some stage you got to get in the pool.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm like. I want things, even with these, as Brandon, with these webinars, with other things we do, I work so hard to make sure they're absolutely perfect sometimes. And sometimes I need to just jump in a bit quicker. It doesn't need to be perfect. Tweak it after the first couple of times, whatever. And I think there's a little bit of that with freelancing, as scary as it can be. You don't need to wait till you think you're the all singing, all dancing, most amazing freelancer in the world. I think get in there if you spot an opportunity in a perfect world, and if your employer allows it and your contract allows it. As you said earlier, Brandon, if you can keep full-time work and dip your toe into freelancing, that's a great way to start. We've had full-time staff who've asked, could they take some time off and work on this event as a freelancer, that event as a freelancer. And we've I don't think have we ever stopped anyone doing that? I don't think so. Instinctively, I want people to do that. I can imagine clashes if they were going with certain competitors to do work or something, but that never actually happened. We've always viewed it as, if our full-time staff can go and work on a gig that we're not involved in and learn a new skill or learn a new part of the business, that will stand to us. So I'm not saying everyone thinks that way, but some people do. I'm delighted to say we've had a few people want to jump in on this. So if Matt's mic is working, Matt, can you hear me?
1 second. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you. I'm going to thank you for jumping in. Oh, we've even got a camera. There we go. I'm going to get out of the way. You two gents talk. I would say we've had a couple more people who wanted to jump in here. So what I would say is there will be another couple of opportunities where Brandon does this.
Yes.
So I expect you guys to jump back in again then. You know who you are.
All right. Hey, Matt. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Hi there, very well. How are you?
Yes, great. Thanks. All right, Matt, what is the right mindset for you as a freelancer?
So for me, it's about staying positive. I mean, obviously, we all know working in events, especially when you get into the thick of the live days, it sometimes feels like it's just problem after problem, issue after issue, and you're having to go and solve them. But actually, it's about staying positive and remembering that actually 99% of this event is going to plan. 99% of our plan is working. There's just these little tweaks that we've got to do just to kind of finish it off. It's making sure you take time for yourself. So if you said, I'm going to, finish, what I'm doing, barring an emergency, finish what you're doing and go and have that downtime, making sure that you go and sit somewhere to eat. Don't take food on the go. Just give yourself that little bit of me time, because if you're not looking after yourself, you'll find you'll burn out before even the end of the first event.
True.
And then if you do kind of do back-to-back events, and we all do in the busy seasons, kind of through summer and the peaks of winter, just try and take a week off, because actually, if you've done 4 weeks of events, that's 4 weeks of notes and debriefs you need to kind of catch up on. But it's also the next 4 weeks of events that you've not even kind of given yourself the chance to really look in detail and get yourself in the right mindset before you get there.
Yes, completely right. So, and by acknowledging this, what equipment would you recommend that fits in that?
For me, I wouldn't be without my laptop. I use a Windows laptop. I use Dropbox for my file synchronization. So if anything ever happens to the laptop, or if I'm just literally walking around the site, I can get straight on Dropbox on my phone if I need to check something. But if anything were to happen, I know I can just any internet-enabled computer, I'm straight onto what I'm up to. I have a general tool bag, so your usual kind of sets of spanners, screwdrivers,
yeah.
The things that any kind of handyman would need. I carry all my PPE, so as you said, like helmets, high vis, steel toes, gloves. I have power tools, but what I try and do is I try and stick to stuff that I can charge on 12 volts. So if I'm arriving in the early days of the site and we've not necessarily got generators, but we've still got work to do, or the generators don't arrive on the day they're supposed to, it doesn't necessarily affect me, because I'm in the middle of redoing my car actually, and all of the kind of 12-volt chargers are going to be hardwired in, but obviously most of them you just plug into the cigarette lighter, and that just gives you that little edge over others, because if you can literally run out of your vehicle, then you're not dependent on anything. Yeah. So there's LED lights in the car as well. So if it gets dark and I'm still working, all I do is just back up the tailgate and I've got light over where I'm working. And just being flexible, just thinking about, right, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I can turn up to the hotel and they've overbooked. So I've always got a sleeping bag in my car, just in case. It's never happened. Wow. But I like to think, what's the worst that can happen to this event or to me? And can I just throw something in the car that will solve that problem? If I can, it goes in. If I don't use it, fantastic. But I'd rather have it and not use it than need it and think, why did I leave that at home?
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. That's definitely what we'll take with us. All right. That's great.
Thank
you. I definitely like Matt's idea, and this is why I like that so much. And especially once you start working in the events industry, you see this like-minded thinking. That's why the gear is, in that sense, important. And that idea that you're just depending on the car and with the 12 volt, that's a really good one. Never thought of that before, but that's what I really like. All right. So just to move on from there, important part, have the right mindset, take care of yourself. That's a really big, important part. Mark, could there be one burning question from the chat or something that we have to look into at this point? Yeah,
there's a couple of good things come in. Chris was wondering, what office software do you use? I know, like Matt mentioned, that he's Windows laptop and Dropbox to make sure everything syncs. Are you old school? Do you have specific software you use to kind of track all your your work?
In that sense, I for my administration, I do use Excel. To be quite honest, I just started to use a bookkeeper software where I can do my accountancy now, because that's the outsourcing part. Well, we'll be getting next to in the next couple of slides. And what I do use is Office 365. That works really well for me, because all the appointments I have, and for me it's not Dropbox, but then OneDrive is integrated in that, Microsoft Teams. There's a whole bunch of software loaded with that, and I only pay a monthly subscription towards my hosting provider. And I have all these tools. And to be quite honest, that Dropbox that Matt dropped there is really, really good, because I use OneDrive. And if I go to a location and I need my certificates to show them, or I need to have my ID, I just get into the OneDrive, and I can just easily pick them, get them on my phone screen and show them. And that works great for me. So that's something I would use, definitely.
It's nearly the equivalent of what Matt has in the physical world, with the car and all the gear in it and all that. It's about being able to quickly access stuff that you might need.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another question from Linda that I'll paraphrase slightly because it's long, but she's just wondering if people have gone freelance from the start, or are you better off maybe working in-house, building up contacts, building up a knowledge base before trying freelance? And I think, Linda, the answer to that is it's going to vary for people so much. I know people who are finishing event management degrees now, and they're gung-ho. They know they want to go freelance. They've been freelancing for a couple of years, and that suits them, suits their personality. I don't know you, Linda. I don't know what age you are. I wouldn't even presume to guess. But I think people who are in the industry a while will find a benefit in having built up contacts from working full-time, maybe in an agency or an event organizer management company. So it just depends where and when you are in your career, what type of person you are. The bottom line is, the more contacts, the more people you know, the better off you'll be when you look for freelance work. But, if you're going through your event management degree, you're freelancing a lot, you're volunteering, you're making contacts. I know a lot of people who very successfully just go straight into freelancing and do well out of it.
Yes, definitely. Great answer, Mark. And just only to add to that is that once I started, I noticed myself reaching out to people. And I remember this time that I reached out in my first year to a company I really wanted to work for. And then after 2 years of that, not hearing, we spoke briefly, but they hadn't had room on their team. And then after a while, once this other guy saw me with that van and all the tools and equipment, and he started to know me, he wanted to introduce me to them. And then all of a sudden I got a call from them. So sometimes making contacts takes a while. It took me 2.5 years, 3 years maybe to get in touch with them. So let not withhold yourself from getting out there by not having too many contacts. It can take time.
Yeah, it definitely can take time. There's a question here from Emma that I might bring up now, because I think maybe people might have some good answers in the chat, or you might have. I don't really have an answer for this one, but I think someone in here might.
Okay.
So she says, is it all about your network at first? Are there forums where freelance contracts are usually posted? Do you have to speculatively apply directly to events for contract work? That can be really difficult. Often the people who are staffing and running an event, they can be hard to find. We run events where you might not know we're involved at all. So you might be emailing the website for the festival or the event. They might not even, the person picking that email up might not even know who runs it. So, but I'm interested because I know in different countries, there are different forums, there are different systems. So Emma, I don't know where you're based, but if anyone has any advice about where, if there are message boards, forums where people can get freelance contracts, you might throw it into the chat there for Emma, and I'm sure others might appreciate that information if it exists, you know.
Yeah, I think I know only one website that started, but now probably due COVID-19. But here in Holland, we have Festival Vacature, and that website is focusing that's one of the first platforms I know that's going that way of doing that. And then other than that, it's probably LinkedIn. I would say.
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is really good. And like I said, I'm fed up people saying, "Oh, I'm not into LinkedIn. I'm not a LinkedIn person, or I'm not a Twitter person."
Yeah.
Forget whether you're a LinkedIn person or a Twitter person or an Instagram person or whatever. Are you a I want to find work and network person?
Yeah.
Because if you are, go where the conversations are. And there's great stuff happening on LinkedIn, and there's good stuff happening on Twitter too, if you're trying to get into this industry and talk to people. Just briefly before I disappear on you,
Yeah.
William has made a good point here, and I wanted to say it too. When we talk about gear and having gear, one thing I always have, and William has said it for a slightly different reason, but I always have a little digital voice recorder.
Okay.
Now, every time I say that to people, people say, but your phone can do that. Your phone can record your phone, and it can. However, when you work in safety roles or event controller roles like I do, my phone needs to be my phone. It never stops.
Yeah.
There's messaging, there's apps we use for event control on there. If I can have a thing that's smaller than my phone that I press a button on and record a voice message or record an incident that happened, that's better for me to have in my pocket than to use my phone. To be honest, my phone is too valuable to tie up doing that kind of thing. So that's an interesting one. Maybe consider that. They're cheap. They work really well. They back up to the computer. They weigh nothing. I forget, it's a Sony thing, but it weighs nothing. So William, thank you for reminding me of that. He's jumped in there with that one. And Brandon, just so you know, we have people, I think, willing to jump in the next time you want someone.
All right.
There are people raising hands, so I should have someone the next time.
Oh.
I think people are getting into this now, which is good. So I'm going to run away on it.
Good. Thanks, Mark. Yes, there's some great ideas. So I'll just move on a bit quicker through these slides because we have already discussed some valid points already of how to keep growing. So once you've decided on becoming a freelancer and have been freelancing for a while, then this is an obvious question, like how do you keep growing? And this is actually a point where I'm at still after 5 years of freelancing now. I'm really at a point, how do I keep growing? Because I have been doing all these kinds of different hats for the past years. And I now want to find out for myself, how do I get towards my goal? So I now call myself a senior site coordinator, to be more specific towards clients, because otherwise he's the guy of just doing everything. And for me, I'm at a point of, this is my first step into going towards my goal of being a technical producer with a crowd safety specialization. So how do I keep growing at this point is definitely talk with industry professionals. So one of the reasons to come up of this webinar is to connect, of course, with so many people. This is one of the things you do. Other options can be take courses, because also at courses you meet people that are in that industry that can be helpful for you to have a chat with and bring you further. Even now with this session, I've already had 2 great valid points that I will take with me. So one of the other things that I like to do is go to conferences. I've been lucky to be able to attending Mark's course last year in February. So I flew to Dublin to be in one of their sessions at the time. Through the past few months, I've been to a couple of courses before the COVID-19 situations abroad as well, to be able to expand my network abroad, because I would like to work more internationally in the coming years. So it's a great way of meeting people and talking slightly different about the event industry, because it's all the same. It's one industry, but every country has its own bit of culture and way of doing things, and that can be really interesting. So definitely conferences and international conferences for me in that. Connecting with people is one of the most important things, and besides that, it's one of the most enjoyable things, because often when I'm doing site crewing jobs and we're lifting fences, you're there with the buddy that you might have just met, and then you can share all these stories, and it's so interesting to get to know somebody better, learn a bit more about their life and about their view on the events world. People that are really, really serious about being in the events industry, they're always happy to discuss and talk and learn stuff from each other. So that's really great. About connecting with people, Mark, we can offer this. This is, for me, it's a really, really good initiative, community. They started a couple of years ago. When they started freelancing, they missed their network drinks at Friday night, the fun with colleagues, celebrating that the end of the week is there, and special other occasions. So now every quarter of the year, they run a special event, and now it's a virtual one. It is Dutch-based, but I think they're expanding on 2021. Their goal is to go global. So maybe one of you guys here in the session know someone who would definitely be up for being in a community like that, or get an office abroad. Because what they do is get people together. They provide workshops, and like this great initiative for the webinar, loads of stuff. That's what they do as well. So it's definitely worth a look. The whole concept is great. So that's why I would like to share it here with you guys. Yeah, we've been over that part. How do I keep growing? And then let's go to the part where we can have someone in the session to share their plans on continue to grow as a freelancer and connect with professionals.
Yeah, we'll give that a couple of seconds. See, does anyone else want to jump in there? There's a couple of things have come in. Leo had a question about, is there a danger? Talking about, Matt made a point about taking breaks and not burning out. And Leo has said, when you're young and starting out, is it a risk to turn down work when you're trying to get your foot in the door?
Well, I would say the risk is that if you don't put your foot in the door, that you might run past yourself, and then you're not even able to put a foot in the door. So no, I guess staying close to yourself, being true to yourself, and really listen to your body. That means that you'll always be able to perform at best once you do a job, and that gets you client. And it's not that way that running through all kinds of clients and jobs. And listen, that's something we'll all go through. I've did that back-to-back events where Matt was talking about. We've all done that, and it's fun. It's part of the experience, but that's not long-term. Long-term is building up, getting good context, and get yourself known out there for who you are and the quality you deliver. So that's really my view on that.
Yeah. I have to agree, Leo. It is a tough one. We'll all agree with you. We'll all probably be honest and put our hands up and say we've gotten it wrong. We've got the balance wrong. We've done it. We've done too many gigs. We've got burned out or too close to burned out. And it can be hard because the season, depending on what type of event you work, it can be a really short, tight season. I've seen some chat there. People are saying, yeah, we've done it. We've burned the candle at both ends. You have to mind yourself. I mean, I catch myself still on long events or long days, not eating properly, not looking after myself, not taking breaks. Brandon's right. You need to look after yourself. You need to try and plan as well as you can and build in breaks between gigs if you can. Now, don't get me wrong. Look, the greatest opportunity comes up. You make a call as to whether you can fit it in, whether you can go and do it. You know, that happens. It doesn't. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't happen, but you have to look after yourself. Whether Brandon says talking about food and eating right on site, or whether it's just having a week off where you don't take a gig. Sometimes we all run on adrenaline when we're on the show, and you love it, and you're loving the fun. You're loving the couple of drinks afterwards, but you only realize when you leave. I've had events where I've only realized when I sat into the car on the Monday morning and went, Jesus, I'm tired. And I wonder, should I drive? And I just pop back to the hotel and sleep for another while. Because when you're running on adrenaline, you feel like you can stay going. But when you start to come down from that adrenaline, it hits you really hard. So I think there is a risk in turning down the work. But I think, as Brandon says, if you want longevity and if you want to be, considered that anytime you're working, you're on top of your game, you're going to need to look after yourself. I've just gotten a message from the person who was going to jump on here they have a computer issue. Their software wants to update. It won't let them use their mic. So if anyone wants to jump in and put the hand up, do it now. I have one more question I can go to in the short term. There was one there I spotted that was quite interesting. Sorry, Mark was asking what event control apps would you recommend? Oh, that was to me. Look, for me, you're asking what I use in my business. It's probably no secret. We use a piece of software called Halo. The website, I believe, is halosolutions.com. That's what we use in event control. That's what we use to manage our events, to log everything. It does an awful lot of stuff for us. There are similar, what is it everyone says? Other products are available or whatever. Like, I'm answering the question. That's what we use. There are other similar products. Depending on what you want or what you need, you might find one of the others suits you better. We use Halo on all our medium to big shows. It does everything we need it to do when we're, looking after 250,000 people or 500,000 people on these big shows. So that's what we use. But there's lots of stuff out there. I would echo something Brandon said. My mother is an accountant. And as long as I can remember, she has been telling me that Microsoft Excel is one of the most powerful pieces of software you'll ever find. 99.9% of us do not use Excel to its potential. And that's take that with you, do with it what you will. If my mother says it's a powerful piece of software, trust me, it is. So it does a lot, and I know we've tried lots of project management software, and we often come back to Excel. So Marcin is here with his hand up. Brandon, I think I have someone.
Excited.
I'm just going to say yes to Marcin then, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's on a lot of these webinars. He's a good guy. We'll see, can we get him into the room? I'll have a quick scan for one more question while I'm. I hope that was of use, Mark. You can talk to the guys in Halo. Lloyd's a good guy. Tony was asking, are there any courses you would recommend us doing that are not £500? Okay, I take your point, Tony. I would say not knowing what part of the business you want to get into or anything, things like what is always useful. Scaffolders, people who can drive forklifts, a driving license, maybe in your country, wherever you are, a license that lets you drive a little van or a mini bus or something. These types of things are always really handy.
Trailer.
Depending on what part of the business you want to get into. A trailer license. The ability to tow a trailer or a light tower. If you do have a car, here's one. If you do have a car, get a tow bar. Be the guy who can tow the light tower 10 meters to a better position when we need that to happen. Marcin, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey.
Okay, I'm going to run away. Brandon, Marcin, Brandon, you guys can talk, and I'll come back in a while.
Hey, Marcin, nice to meet you. How are you?
All good from this side. I'm not sure if you see me. The camera is on, but
we don't have view, but we have a clear audio sound. So
good, because my COVID-19 haircut is so bad.
Okay. But this is quite convenient for you then.
Yeah.
What is your plan to continue to grow, assuming you're a freelance as well?
Well, I'm not like fully freelancers. I just been working in the hospitality business for like over 17 years, and being in hospitality, the events are quite a big, from small to very, very large, and I've been taking part in many of them. And 3 years ago, I started to organize the event for coffee lovers, for barista in Dublin.
Okay.
But I treat it as the non-profit, as more as a combine the coffee professionals with the local community to increase coffee specialty industry. But I taking the baby steps from every year and lessons which I learned and how I supposed to go through. So I decided last year to join to event management, the diploma in one of the Dublin colleges. That's how I met the lecturer and many peoples, and that's how lecturer connect me to the mark, and that's how I start take a part in these webinars.
Yeah.
So that's the learning perspective, which I like to growing my confidence in the industry. So yeah, baby steps and slowly forward and changing, learning from the professionals who've been in industry much longer than I do.
Slow but steady. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that sounds great. So how do you connect with those industry professionals that you come along?
Yeah, like I was decided, as I said, to join one of the courses in Dublin colleges as the event management, and I met so many people and obviously when you making the events itself, you have to contact with so many people, like with the sponsors, with all the people who have to help you to organize, even for free or with some small payment, and that's how you make the connections. And this is beautiful about this. Like the people are the biggest assets of every company. So if you got the good contacts, you're never gonna disappear, I suppose.
Great. Thanks for coming on and sharing that. That's really a valuable point.
Thank you.
Yes. That reminds me of one of each year I'm involved in one event where I am joining the team who does the artist handling, and that's not a paid job. It's a very fun job, and it's exactly those kind of jobs where you are able to meet so many people, and it's differently because I can imagine for myself in that role. It has a different set to it. The others are the other roles are working for a client. There's money involved. There's finance. So that has a different thing to it. But when doing it on a voluntary basis, it is a different vibe. All the people are differently in that, more relaxed maybe somehow, and you work in a different atmosphere. So connecting is different in that sense as well, which is great. Great opportunity, great point. So yeah, that brings us down to the key session points. Get out there, improve yourself, and stay curious, because that curiosity brings you to those next levels. We've gone to some questions already, so I'd just like to go to the part of the most memorable thing, and then have at the end some more time to do some questions, because we're arriving at the last part of the presentation. And I put these slides in because I think it open up for people who are freelancing for a while, that COVID-19 has also given us a chance to reflect back on ourselves in a way that we often wouldn't do, because we're always looking forward, which is a good thing, but sometimes it's good to look back, reflect, and see what you've already done. Makes me feel grateful a lot of times by seeing all the things that I have done already, and it also inspires and motivates me to get going to the next part of what we can do. So yeah, there's failures, there's good times, there's things that you often look back to and you're like, okay, how did I do that? And that could be driving a forklift. My failure at that time was once that bringing the forks down too low. I think it was in my second year freelancing. Drove back with the forklift, but the forks were still on the ground, and there was a cable there that I didn't see properly, and when pulling it up backwards, the cable snapped. I was like, okay, that was the cable supplying many tens of current at that time. Luckily, it wasn't a production, but it was still during load-in. But still, that's one of the things you look back like, okay, don't do that ever again. And there's so many good times. There's so many people you meet within the industry. There's so many things you get to see backstage, or when doing festivals, seeing people enjoying themselves, having a great time. And yeah, you're part of that team that makes that effort to make that happen for those people. And that's really a special vibe. So that makes me come to the part what was most memorable for me. And I would say that doing all these courses, buying that equipment, really loving the fact of being a freelancer and the opportunity of growing and choosing my own path, my own way, making my own mistakes. And I think that got me to a point of doing a course that ended up being the crowd safety course and risk analysis from Professor Keith Still, where I ended up meeting a lot of great new people from the international event industry. And that got me the chance to freelance a few months in Australia and being able to work there on one large stadium show of Ed Sheeran. And yeah, well, living there for 3 months abroad, having that experience. And I think that is one of the things that stands out for me as well for that. Then Mark, maybe we can invite somebody for the last time on the session.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of people who still have their hands up, so let's see if this will work. We've had some people have had to run away, which is cool. I'm just scanning through a couple of questions to see what we can. I wrote some down from earlier, actually. There was an interesting one, which I think you might have a good perspective on. People are wondering what soft skills. So we've talked about, we've talked about the gear and what kind of equipment you might have, but people were wondering what soft skills should they work on to be a good freelancer.
Yeah, what would that be for me? I guess that would, for me, that stands out eagerness, like really be open to listen to someone, be patient, because we're in a lot of stressful situations. And I noticed that a client is often very stressful about what's to happen. So if you come up to them and really make them feel at ease and that you're in control for them, that really brings in sort of relief. So that people skills to manage that, I think that's really, really important once on the job, especially during production or show time or whatsoever. So I think...
Yeah, I would agree. I would say don't underestimate the value of people who are just friendly and calm and pleasant to be around. I mean, we've all worked shows where things can be going wrong, or there can be kind of constant stress and situations to be dealt with. But calming influences, nice people who can just read a room and maybe think, now might not be the time to ask that question, or now might be the time to offer everyone, does anyone need a cup of tea, or does anyone need me to run to cover them while they run to the bathroom? It sounds really stupid, but they're the people you remember. We could be sitting there dying to go to the bathroom, busy, and for someone to come in and go, look, do you want me to jump in there for just 5 minutes? Do you want to grab a quick break? I could remember you for the rest of my life for that. Yeah. So someone else had said it in the chat, be that helpful person, just be pleasant to have around. I'm not going to lie, we have some really busy shows and people I like spending time with. I will try and find work for them on the show.
Definitely. I've one example that really, it's been with me for a long time. I remember doing a job in the city center, and they had an office, and that office there was quite steep, and we had promotion teams running through the whole city center, and we were coordinating that. And I remember going up there, and each time I walked in, there was a big pile of old newspapers, I would say. And I remember that it wasn't my office. I was there for the first time, but I picked it up and I got it upstairs in some of the rooms, placed it as nicely as I could. And the next day, she made a special notice to the client that she was very impressed that happened. That was the first thing she said. And that really reminded me, like, yeah, it can be all the small things that can make a great big difference.
No, 100%. Ruby has a good piece of advice too. Know how to fill or charge a buggy, which is good. If you know how and where.
Yeah. I
always find on a festival site, the person who knows where to get the fuel for the buggy, they're a valuable person to know.
Definitely.
Desi, actually, who works with me, has put a good comment in there. He says, you have 2 ears and one mouth. use them in that proportion. And that's good, but that's from a learning perspective, but it's also from just hearing what's going on around you. You might pick up on what people's stresses are or what needs they might have that you might be able to fulfill. This isn't rocket science, but
No.
you know, I've had people who were able to solve a problem for us really quickly simply because they had just passed the thing I was looking for, or I might have literally said, God, where do we get fuel for the buggy? I can't even remember. And someone goes, oh, I just walked past that. Do you want me to? And I said, jump in the buggy with my guy and go refuel it. At one of my earliest big gigs, someone else put in a comment, and forgive me, I forget who said it, but they said, make friends with your suppliers. Be really nice, develop relationships with suppliers, because you never know when they help you out. And one of my, I'm probably sharing too much now, but one of my earliest big gigs that we were fully in charge of, I ordered one less generator than I needed.
Okay, yeah.
And it was on me. It was 100% on me. I had forgotten to add one late in the day. Actually, I think I had sent the supplier an earlier version of the form instead of the one that had the extra one. So on the day of the event, my fault, we're down one generator. Because of the way everything loaded in, it was actually all the sponsors village that was missing a generator. And that's not going to go well. I need power for the sponsors village. And this, you might think I made this up. I'm not making this up. I was in event control. I was talking out loud. I was making phone calls, trying to find power. The guy who did the light towers was waiting to talk to me. And he eventually goes, Mark, and I just popped around. Well, yeah. He goes, are you short a generator? All right, yes, I'm an idiot. I'm short a generator. And he goes, well, I brought 2 spare light towers, and light towers are essentially a generator. And we have the electricians we need. So where do you need a generator?
Wow.
And this was my first time using this supplier. And I said, I need it over there. And he goes, cool, don't worry. I'll get a light tower over there. I'll get my electrician will go over and we'll have a generator for you in 20 minutes. And he went off. I started dealing with all the other things I needed to deal with. And I got a radio call about 15 minutes later to say they now had power for the sponsors.
Wow.
Now that guy, we give that guy work all the time now. Desi will laugh on here. He'll tell you he is our power guy now. He's worked his weight in gold. He's just a good guy, and he'll always dig you out of a hole. I think we've talked enough that the lady who was going to come on must be having tech issues. We invited her, but she hasn't reappeared. So
all right.
I'd say you can probably carry on.
Yeah.
I don't think she'll appear now at this stage.
All right. Well, I think we had a great chat around this. To finish that off, it's great. Learn from your past experience and shares all this great moment. Even listening to Mark's story, that's where it's all about. That's just amazing. Really gets me excited. Maybe Mark, are there some other questions from the chat we can use or we can discuss? Because I think it's the last question and answer session that I put in for now, at least.
Yeah, perfect. Let me just scan down and I'll see, have we missed anything? I think because the way you designed this and you had the gaps for the questions, we may have hit most things, but just let me scan in the chat. Also, obviously, if anyone has anything they still haven't asked but they want to ask, please throw it into the chat now before we let Brandon go. I know we're nearly at 2 hours and some people have had to leave, but if you do have a question, we'd be keen to try and help you out with it. So I'm just going to scan down and see. I'm not spotting any more, but the chat scrolls off for us, for presenters. So if anyone asks something that we didn't answer, maybe just pop it straight back in again and it'll come up the top for me. I don't want to do anyone out of an answer to a question. A lot of people, this is what I'm talking about. This is good. A lot of people are sharing their LinkedIn, stuff there, and that's really cool. Do you want me to pop up that your LinkedIn thing?
Yeah, sure. Throw it in. Sure. That's where it's.
And look, again, I know I've said it. You might not be into LinkedIn. It might not be your thing. I will speak to anyone one-on-one about the power of LinkedIn, right? Yeah. I don't love LinkedIn. I'm not mad into that type of social media, but I do put a little bit of work into it. I try and help people out. I try and share. I try and build a network. And I can tell you these webinars would not be happening without LinkedIn. The vast majority of people that are presenting on here, I've met through LinkedIn or connected with me on LinkedIn. And like, again, it's got power, especially if you want to be a freelancer. Yeah, there's Andy saying, if you want to be a freelancer, get onto LinkedIn. I mean, I have to agree. You don't need to love it. I mean, it's not about whether you love it or not, but if you can get on there, and if you can develop relationships. I see a lot of UK event management students. I think their lecturers must say it to them, but we get a lot of connections from UK event management students looking to learn, looking to network. And I think that's really good.
Yeah.
A lot of us in this industry are happy to share knowledge, happy to share information. I always say the worst thing that happens is we're busy. And, you know, for me personally, I'm busy. It may take me a couple of days to come back to you, but I will come back to you. And if I can be any use, I will. And I'm not the only person. So Andy's right. Get on LinkedIn, get on Twitter. Leo says, as a student, LinkedIn is really drilled into us. Well, there you go. And look, it's good. Sometimes I've made amazing relationships that only exist on the internet in LinkedIn. Yep. People that I help out, they help me out all the time. We bounce ideas off each other. Like I said, 99% of the people doing these webinars I only know from LinkedIn.
Yes.
You know, most of the Eric and, well, okay, some of the guys on the panel webinar yesterday, I've rarely met.
Yeah.
As Brandon said, I meet them at conferences.
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't work together all the time. We don't know each other really well. But when one of us tries to do something, when I invite, you know, Brandon or Tim and Dan and Eric from yesterday's webinar, when I ask them to come on, they're willing to, and they want to share that knowledge. And there's a lot of that going around, and that will stand to you. So people in full-time jobs might not get it, but if you're always on the lookout for your next big job, that's true. Maybe people who are freelance get LinkedIn a bit more and understand the value in it, perhaps.
I would say so.
Yeah, we're probably right. No one's jumping in with any last-minute questions. A couple of people have said that doing the questions throughout the session worked really well, and they like that. So we may well have kind of answered a lot of stuff, people. But again, stuff has dropped off the bottom of my screen. So if you're annoyed with me, we didn't answer a question, we'll stall for another minute or two before we let Brandon go. Throw it in there. You're welcome, Leanne, and thank you, Mark. Yeah, run away. It's all good. Brandon, do you think the day you decided to go freelance is one of the best decisions you've made?
At this point, I would say yes. I think I can remember a time that I was just about to start, and that's why I put in the slide, I'm ready. Maybe not, because there was a point that you really, once you are about to start, I just bought a home, I had the mortgage, and that's the thing that could do like, oh, what am I doing? But at the same time, I was so eager, and I knew, I really felt within myself that this would be the best decision, and I couldn't even imagine what I've been through from now on till here. And once you do these things we've discussed throughout the webinar, I would say that it's fast tracking potentially in terms of getting clients, growing, because it's about that time where you take that step to actually do it instead of having it in your mind and that would be something I would want to do, but it's about doing that. And it's what you said, Mark, like sometimes you want to have it perfect. For me, it's the same. Before I start doing something, I'm a bit of perfectionism in some things, and that holds you back. Sometimes you just have to get out there and then improve it over time, because that gets you going. And I would say that's one of the things I would regret nowadays, is that I didn't start sooner. I should have started sooner, for sure.
Yeah, I think I know a lot of people who kind of have that same hindsight now when they look back and go, they wish they started sooner. But look, we're not idiots either. It can be a big decision. As you said, you know, things like mortgages, kids, all these types of things can keep you in full-time jobs. Maybe the timing's not right for you. But that's the world. That's the real world. I often look back and I envy event students now who are coming out and maybe are so, you know, they're confident.
Yeah.
They've done the course. They've done their they've done volunteering and all that, and they're happy to straight in go freelancing. And I always think that if I did it over again and was thinking that way, I'd have loved to have gone really freelance early as well, and maybe traveled the world, do more events. I mean, we're lucky we have clients in Saudi Arabia, and I worked at the London Olympics and stuff. But when I was younger, listen to me, I'm nearly 40. When I was younger, I'd love to have been doing more events globally, travel to stuff for 9 months, for 12 months, whatever. I would say, guys, look into that. Look at these big games events, see are there opportunities there, go for these roles. And if you get them and you have the freedom to do it, up sticks, off you go, have a great experience for 6 or 9 months. And eventually you'll probably come back and maybe settle into a full-time role. But take those opportunities. There's so many, not during COVID, obviously, but in general.
Yeah, all right.
There are so many big games types events all around the world. Some great opportunities, even in the UK with the Commonwealth Games is it 2022 in Birmingham.
Yeah.
There's good people that we're all connected with on LinkedIn involved in that, and there's some great opportunities out there. And if you can stay full time and dip your toe, I mean that's ideal. If you're confident enough to go straight into the freelance from college, I say fair play to you. I'd love to have done that.
Yeah. Me too.
I think everyone's sharing LinkedIn's there and thanking you, Brandon, for a great session. Can I just say,
should we go for the last few slides? It's just 2 slides. And
absolutely. Yeah, man.
Hang in the room, or Mark, just stay in there. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Take time to find out where you want to go. Don't do everything yourself. So ask for help and people around you. Be open to learn. Be eager to grow and make those great memories. Then this bookend, I stole this a bit from Simplify. That's one other thing to get motivation or inspiration from, using podcasts. There are a few event podcasts around there, but I listen to a couple of them that don't even have something to do with events, but mostly about personal growth or anything like that. And there's one called Simplify that I listen to a lot. It goes over books, and I still their bookend from them. And this is from a session that I had last week. This book is called Company of One, and I think it really suits. And I think there's a reason why this came on my path last week, so I could share it in this session. I've not read it yet, but I've been going through it through a couple of pages, and I think it's a really nice. It's not even €10, I guess. So it's really nice to have one, and it's fully about the freelancing part we're talking about. And that brings me to the end of this session, where I would like to thank you, Mark, and all the listeners in the room for attending this session and the great talks we've been able to have. And hopefully we continue this by connecting with each other, and we'll see you again in the future.
Yeah, Matt has made a good point there about sharing LinkedIn profiles. Make sure your settings allow people you don't know to connect with you.
For sure. Yeah.
I find LinkedIn interesting. Some people get really shitty on LinkedIn and think that they should only be connecting with people they already know in real life.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I get it. I don't see that would be using LinkedIn to its full potential.
No.
But yeah, good point, Matt. People need to make sure that their LinkedIn is set so they can accept. Matt is just saying as well, the audience participation thing. Look, Brandon will tell you, we had a great test session yesterday, and I'm really keen on the audience participation thing.
Yeah.
I love that this technology lets us do it fairly easily. Now, it didn't work for Tony, who was trying to come in earlier on, didn't work for her. I don't know what happened there, but I love that. But I suppose I have to say, depending on presenters and what they're presenting, it may or may not work. It might not feel right. But I think for Q&A, it's the type of thing we might start to open up to people to jump in and open their own mics and stuff. I think it makes it a lot more interactive. And again, we learn from each other so much, as well as we learn from presenters and from me talking as well. So like, I think it's good. I think you're right. I think it's something we'll do a bit more. And I would like to thank Brandon for going out of his way to develop a session that incorporated that. Because I think the approach you took was really good, especially for this type of topic.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. People are fed up listening to me saying everyone's getting great value out of the chat. Everyone's getting great value out of the chat. This is a great way to start bringing the people who are giving value in the chat into the presentation. So I think it works really well.
Great.
And I would like to thank you for doing it. There's a lot of people saying thank you there in the chat as well. So I think there's no more questions flying in. So I think we're good, folks.
Good.
Thank you for thanking us. I would like to thank Brandon again. Great session, a lot of experience there. Thank you to Marcin and to Andy and to Matt who came on live. Thank you to Tony who was willing to come on live, but obviously tech got in her way. And thank you to Sinead who was willing to come on live as well. I appreciate that. And I think we're good. Thank you for giving us 2 hours of your Friday.
Wow, time flies.
I know, yeah, it's 2 hours. Like, this is what happens when the chat is good. And I've taken over my sitting room at home. I bet my better half is just waiting outside that door going, never again. You're not doing this on a Friday night. It's not happening. Brandon, have you any last words of wisdom for us all?
Yeah, no, it's been such a great session, and just do it. I think that helped me. So get out there, go do it.
Yeah, it's easy for us to say. We do accept that the real world and mortgages and all that get in there, but I have never met a busy freelancer who regrets going freelance.
Exactly.
And that's from a man who runs his own business and hired people full time. But I still use a lot of freelancers, and I have some great freelancers that we work with, and my business wouldn't be the same without them. So again, I've never met an unhappy one. I've met busy ones, and I've met stressed out ones who are as stressed as I am, but I have not met unhappy freelancers. So definitely worth looking at, folks.
All right.
All right, let's head off. Thank you very much, Brandon. Thank you. Yep. Thank you guys in the room. I'm going to shut things down now and have a great weekend. We'll see you if you're on any of these next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.